And then one day he sent me a really, really sad song. And I said, "Are you okay?" He said, he laughed and he said, "Yeah, of course. Why?" I'm like, "Because this song is really sad. And it's not really to take lightly. Like, these lyrics are crazy." He laughed and he said, "Yeah, babe, don't worry. Everything's fine." And looking back to those times, and you're like, oh my God, he was telling me that he was going to pass, a couple months from the time that he sent that. And as individuals, sometimes we're not that aware of what's being said. I feel like words are very powerful and you can manifest anything. Um, and I feel like a lot of people would be like, just take it lightly, like, oh, haha, like, don't say that. It's, you can't joke about that. And you really can't. Because then he ended up passing away like 3, 4 months later.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
it was like little signs that maybe he wasn't okay.
Right.
And then, and then, so at the time that he passed,
Mhm.
you knew somehow something was wrong. What was it like for you?
So that day, I would normally get like a message from him in the morning. "Hey, babe, I woke up. I'm getting ready to go to work." Or, "Hey, I'm getting in the car to go to work." Or, "Hey, I'm on my way to work." And that day, he would start work at like 10. And that day, I didn't receive anything. And I thought it was weird. So it was like 10 something. And I decided to text his boss and one of his best friends that worked with him. I said, "Hey, is Anthony there?" I woke up and I knew something was off, but then he wasn't replying. So I texted his coworker and his boss, and they said, "No, he's not here and he's not responding." So I'm like, well, that's really weird that he's not responding. So inside, I was like, maybe something's wrong. And I got ready. I told my mom she could watch the baby for a couple of hours. And I got dressed. I drove to his house, and his car was still there, and his bike was still there. And I walked into his house, and he was non-responsive.
So you found him.
Correct.
It feels so overwhelming to think of what you must have experienced in that moment. How did you be able to function? How were you able to, call the police, call the hospital, like do all the things that's necessary in that moment?
So when you see something like that, your spouse or a family member or somebody that you really genuinely care for, and they're not responsive, I went into shock. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my whole body just froze. I couldn't really speak. So I um, I called my mom and I told her that he had passed away, and she screamed. She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What I just said." She's like, "What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. What do I like? I don't know what to do. So I hung up. And then I called his best friend. I said, "Hey," he's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Well, he's passed away." He's like, he screamed on like the other side. He's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "He's not here. Like, he's here, but he's when I
Not
walk,
here.
yeah, not here, not
Oh my
responsive."
God, honey.
Um, so I said to him, because my brain didn't understand what to do next. So he's like, "You have to call the cops." So I was like, "What do I do?" And he's like, "Call the cops." So I call the cops, and they're like, "Just wait outside." And I waited outside, and they got there, and then a lot of his friends started coming over. And I remember that day was Friday the 13th, and it was pouring rain. It was pouring rain. It was a day that just didn't stop pouring. Um, and it's been a whirlwind of emotions. Um, since then.
Oh, honey, I can just imagine. And I do know a bit of it,
Yeah.
right? But I just, again, want to say how brave and courageous you are to share this story with the hope that your story can be someone else's survival guide, because it's unimaginable what you experienced in that moment. And it's something that I don't think, if you haven't seen something like that, you will ever be able to truly understand. And I will share a story with you. So just to like bring the moment down a little bit. Um, so years ago, I lived in Chicago and I worked downtown at a hotel. It was one of my favorite jobs I ever had. I worked the front desk of a very luxurious hotel, and it was awesome. It was a great job. And I would have to drive down on Lower Wacker Drive, Chicago, and know what I'm talking about. But there's like two parts to this expressway, and there's a lower part, and the other part of the highway or expressway is elevated. It's almost like a tunnel in a weird way. And I had to drive down there. And when I drove down there, I was kind of driving and I looked over and I saw a man laying in the street.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was like, he wasn't a bum or anything like that. Like it was like a very well-dressed man who looked like a suburban guy. And he was just, it was the way in which he was laying that I, like all the air caught in my throat. Like my heart felt like it was going to stop, because from one look, I knew that this person, their soul was no longer in their body. And it took me all of 3 seconds to see the scene. I saw one shoe in the street, him face down on the sidewalk, and it wasn't he was drunk and passed out. It was different, right? And it felt like it was just a horrible thing to see. And it had the feeling of someone that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe had been drunk in the city, wandered down the wrong way, got turned around, because he obviously wasn't like a city guy. He was a suburban guy. You could tell by the way he was dressed. And I got to my job like 3 minutes later, and I called the police. And I was confused because my mind did not want to believe what I thought that I saw. So when I called the police, I was like, there's a guy laying in the street and I'm not sure that he's okay. Um, he doesn't look right. Like, this doesn't look like my dad, and he looks like he's sleeping, and I think that he's going to get up. Like, this can't be real. Like, I think I went into like a sense of denial
Mm-hmm.
about it. And then my mom flipped out, right? And they had to like, I think she passed out or something. And all the adults came rushing and they like got her out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there, left in front of my father's casket and trying to figure that out, as a 7-year-old girl.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because it kind of like brings me back to like comparing like the three